since he's retired. Still believe that the case?
I think if Usyk was to beat Joshua, I think he'll stay retired. Because I don't think he wants to fight Usyk. But I think if AJ wins, and I truly believe he will win, you will see the biggest fight in the history of boxing.
Those are the words, once again, of Eddie Hearn, as Eddie Hearn says, hey, if Usyk beats Joshua, we'll never hear from Tyson Fury again. He will stay retired, and that is what they say is that. Let me counterpunch. We just have to wait and see. Do I believe that? Do I agree with Eddie on this one? I do. Because I think risk versus reward for Tyson Fury. You have to think about Tyson for a minute. Tyson is undefeated. Tyson is the WBC champion. Tyson has had every belt there was. Okay? Every one of them. Including belts that don't have a shape or form. The lineal title. The lineal champion. Right? So, he's had it all. So, for Tyson to look at a fight like Usyk would be more risk versus reward. You know, you go out, you take out your mandatory, Dillian Whyte. You stop Deontay Wilder for the second time in a dynamic fight. What would you want to be remembered for? Would you want to be remembered as a guy that said, I retired after fighting my mandatory, beating my mandatory, retiring, going back to the sport to fight a smaller guy that used to be a cruiserweight, or he calls a middleweight, and get beat? Because, I mean, that's like the fear. That's like the downside. That's the worst that could happen. He gets beat. Right? He gets beaten. And then what does it do for his legacy? It tarnishes it. Because then what'll happen? Usyk will be the man that beat the man that beat the man. Right? Not him. And Tyson knows that. So if I'm Tyson, why would I worry about that? Whereas if Joshua wins, hey, it don't matter, because that's where the reward comes in. Because like Eddie said, that would be the biggest fight in British boxing. You think 94,000 was something. How about 110? That would break numbers. That would rock. That would crack numbers wide open. Especially if Joshua beats Usyk, but because Usyk then wouldn't be a factor. He was just another opposing threat, that resistance that refused to fold until it was folded. Right? So that's all that would have been at that point. But if Usyk beats Joshua twice, just like Tyson beat Deontay twice, why would he then come back and fight Usyk? Then, like, that's a tricky mother sucker. Why would he come back to do all that, to risk all that, where he's already has his statue of him dropping Wilder somewhere in the UK, right? Wilder has his own. Tyson has his own, right? It wouldn't be worth. He's a millionaire. He doesn't have to worry about things like that. And he would just probably, brush that to the wayside. Oh, I am not worried about that. But really, he is worried about that. That's something that he should be worried about. That's why he's not worried about it. I'm not going to make it a problem, because he is a problem. And Usyk is a problem. Especially if he manages to beat AJ. And then see, AJ would then be a guy that, yeah, his stock will drop, right? But he will be the sacrificial lamb for the knowing of how dangerous Usyk is. And then it will always be like, will Tyson Fury come back and do this? No, he won't. I don't think he will. But if AJ knocks out Usyk, he could just say, oh, you just knocked out the smaller fighter. Right? Now I'm going to make millions by fighting you when I come back to the sport of boxing. He may take a year off. He may let Anthony Joshua get bigger. AJ might then fight. If he knocks out Usyk, then what if he ends up fighting Wilder? And then at that point, Tyson Fury could come back and say, well, shit, that is the second highest guy, the guy that I predicted to beat every other guy, but AJ just took him out. So then he would be forced to fight AJ. But see, if Usyk does that, it's like Usyk is the guy that beat a guy that I've never fought. So why would I fight him? You know what I mean? Because that opens up, because then what happens if Usyk beats Tyson Fury? Then it's like, okay, well, who is really better out of Tyson Fury or AJ? Who would know that? Nobody would really know that at that point, because they've both been beaten by the same fighter. We can't say that about Tyson Fury. Counterpunch. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Eddie Hearn stating that if Usyk beats Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury will stay retired. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.